I am a huge fan of Blackmagic cameras. The Pocket 4K was actually my first video center camera that I bought. I created some awesome stuff with that camera. And up until recently, it was one of my more main cameras, but there were a few things that kind of just I didn't like about the camera that what made me want to switch to something like my GH6. Well, they just came out with the Pixus 6K. It's an interesting camera for me, and I'm most likely going to order one, but we'll talk about why I might not later in the video. So first off, Blackmagic's Pixus 6K is the first cube rectangle shaped pocket cinema camera type thing. This is now their kind of attempt at that pocket camera 6K slash FX6 thing. I don't even really know. So there are a couple things that really intrigued me about this camera. The first is open gate. I really like the addition of open gate in their cinema camera lines. And the reason that I absolutely love this feature is I do a lot of work with clients who want vertical and horizontal content. Social media is king right now, and people want both vertical and horizontal. So when I can shoot in open gate, that allows me to crop easier for vertical content when I'm delivering to a client who wants vertical and horizontal. And I don't really have to choose which I want to shoot for. And I like that creative freedom to do both because it doesn't hurt my end product or doesn't force me to shoot one or the other. And being able to use the whole sensor is really awesome for creating great work. Plus, you can add the little 4x3 frame film mat. It's a feature that I use all the time for my own personal content, for client content, and I really like the ability that you can shoot 6K raw open gate to this camera. So that's honestly the first and favorite feature for me of this camera. Now, a lot of people hate the size or the shape of the Pocket 4K, 6K, 6K Pro, whatever. I actually never minded it. I kind of liked that it had a little grip on the side. So for me, the ergonomics of the camera were never a problem. But I do like this kind of box style camera as well. So for me, I think the ergonomics of being able to rig it up, to be able to put it into a carrying case or a bag, to work with it, I think it's going to be plenty fine, honestly, to have that shape. It definitely is nice that they are listening to people with that like box style camera. I've loved using the Red Komodo when I did. And so that kind of small little camera, I absolutely do love. The only thing I didn't like was that on the Pocket 4K it didn't have a pop-out screen like the 6K Pro did. So that was my really only gripe with the screen or the ergonomics of the Pocket 4K. Now, I want to get to what I don't like so much about this camera, because while it does seem like an interesting camera and it does seem like a good camera, there are some things that I'm a little frustrated that they removed. The first thing are the variable NDs. I'm really frustrated that they don't have variable NDs in this camera. I don't know why they took it out of the 6K Pro when they made the 6K full frame, but honestly, variable NDs are such a game changer, and I really am frustrated that they took those out. I understand it would add cost, but I think any of us would be happy to pay that amount in order to have variable NDs. You know, right now I'm shooting here outside in the middle of the day in Texas, and my variable ND filter goes up to 5 stops, and I really need more ND. So I really wish that they had kept the variable NDs. I really don't understand why you take out the variable ND filters. The ease of having variable NDs in your camera is so crucial. I think it was a stupid move that Blackmagic did, and I don't think they really thought things through with that. So that's probably one of my biggest gripes with this camera, because it's just a function that was so useful on the Pocket 6K Pro. I remember when that came out, it was like, oh, that's sick. I love that. And then they make the 6K full frame and there's no variable NDs, but yet it's $2,500. And now you're making this the same price as a 6K Pro. Like, sure, it's an L mount, sure, it has open gate, but I'd rather go with a 6K Pro because it has variable NDs, and what we'll get into the next part, it has ProRes.
So the next frustrating thing is the elimination of ProRes. Now, they eliminated it in the 6K full frame, but I don't understand why. When I shoot with Blackmagic cameras, I shoot RAW, but sometimes there are clients that don't know how to work with RAW, that a RAW workflow from B-RAW might not be the best option because they have to download the plugin, or they're working with other editors and they may not, know to tell their editors to download the plugin. So it can be a little bit of a hard experience for certain people. I like having ProRes in the Pocket 4Ks. The ProRes proxy is a smaller file than the B-RAW 12:1, so it does allow me to give smaller files if I'm doing a longer recording of something and I don't need the RAW controls. I think having ProRes, which is an industry standard codec, is important, and I think that it was a mistake to take it out of the Blackmagic Pixus 6K. I just think that it was an oversight, and I think that that needs to be added back in a firmware going forward. I think there are going to be some people who could have bought this camera where, having ProRes would have really helped. And I get that you can, give people a proxy file, but it's not the same as ProRes. It's not the same as being able to edit the raw clips and not a proxy file. And I think it's an oversight that they need to put in to their cameras.
One thing that's kind of a small gripe, but still a gripe for me, is that the screen is not articulating. The Ursa screens have always been pull out and articulating, and I realized that they're not creating an Ursa Mini Pro, but it would have been really cool had they had that feature, because this is supposed to be a pocket camera. This is supposed to be a compact portable camera, but without the monitor pulling out, then you have to put a monitor on it. So you have to rig it up a little bit, which means it's not a portable camera anymore. And that's something that the Pocket system has really lost, is that portability. And it was brought back with like the 6K Pro and that flip out screen, and the addition of an NPF battery, which added a little bit more time recording. But it's just a gripe for me because it's such a beautiful screen. It's 1500 nit. It's a really good screen, and I just wish that they had made it articulating so that you could, use it in more scenarios than just rigged up. At least you could run a BP battery and a flip out LCD screen and capture a ton of great content and great footage without having to rig it up for a huge production. Part of me is a little frustrated that they didn't update their Ursa Mini 4.6K G2, that they just updated the 12K. I really was hoping for an Ursa Mini Pro update because I'm looking for a main camera, and that would have been it. Because they aren't doing that, I really do wish that they had added that flip out screen, because it just would have made it a little more functional than a camera that you have to rig up. I don't know if the Sony FX6 monitor comes with the camera. To me, that's a better setup because the monitor at least is there, and so you really only have to put a battery on the back and then you're good to go, which that actually leads me into my next point, which is the battery.
So the next thing that really bugs me is the battery. I don't love that they used a BP battery because they're not super expensive, but they're not as cheap as a V-mount battery. I really like being able to use a V-mount and just throwing it on the camera. I feel like had they copied Sony more with the FX6 and allowed for the battery plate on the back, or even had they done something like the Ursa, which has a built-in V-mount battery plate, I think that would have been so much more functional, so much easier, and it would have allowed us to run our camera for a lot longer and be still more portable. I think one of the big things is that this camera just doesn't feel portable like it should, or like everybody's wanted out of a pocket camera. And I feel like at this point, we're just into a cue that is not super functional. Maybe that would have added cost on the back of the camera. I don't know, and I doubt it. I think throwing a V-mount plate on there would have been so much better, but it's really frustrating that they didn't put even an NPF battery plate on the back. Like, I have so many NPF batteries that I could use, and instead they're using a BP battery, which is just one more battery that I would have to invest in. And it's like, can you just stop changing your battery type? I feel like Blackmagic just missed the mark on that part. And honestly, on this camera, as I think about it more, as I talk about my frustrations, I realize that this camera just misses the mark. And it's frustrating because I've been waiting for a main camera to use for my video production work. The S5 IIX has multiple problems. The GH6 just isn't there dynamic range wise, and I was hoping that this would be the camera that I was waiting for. I was hoping that this would be it, and I guess I just have to wait to see what Lumix releases next with their new full frame sensor full frame camera that they're coming out with in May. I think that there are other frustrations for me with this camera, but a lot of it boils down to they missed the mark. I didn't want to agree with other people who have said that. I didn't want to agree with the haters out there on this camera, but they missed the mark. There were so many things they could have done, they should have done, and they didn't do. It doesn't feel like it's a quality, good Blackmagic camera. So at the start of this video, I said that I might get it, but I would get to that later. What I think is probably what I'm going to do, I'm gonna instead buy at least one, if not two, Blackmagic Video Assist monitors. Run Blackmagic RAW on an S5 IIX and a GH6 when I need dual cameras, and that way I can get Blackmagic RAW, which I like. I've rigged these cameras up in a way that I have an F3 on the rig, so I have 32-bit float, and I can just run Blackmagic RAW going forward, and then wait to see what Lumix comes out with, and I guess that's what I'm gonna have to do. So it's unfortunate because I've been really wanting a main video camera for my work that had the cinema camera name, the features and everything, but I can't afford a $15,000 Ursa Mini Pro 12K. I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now and my thoughts on this camera. I think it still is a good camera. It has dual gain ISO, Blackmagic color science, which I love, but it's just not there. So that's my 2 cents on this new camera update. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and let me know whether you think you'd buy it or not, whether you think it would be something good for you. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and if you want to see more videos from me, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified when I post more videos. Have a good one.